Not everyone learns the same. But if someone is looking for the reason to think differently, down to something even deeper than that, because not everybody's into the good and evil, not everybody's into the technology and all of that. It comes down to love. The neural network in the heart thinks, feels, remembers, and emotes independently of the cranial brain. Healing is our nature. Every organ in the human body is now documented with the ability to stop the damage that's been incurred, to reverse that damage, and actually to heal and regrow telomeres, for example, on the DNA. The knowledge is a code. Once you see a potential about your body, you can't unsee it. Some of our viewers may be old enough to remember the computer game that I'm going to reference. 1972, a game called Pong, P-O-N-G, was released. Today it looks primitive. It is essentially a tennis game, a badminton game, two little blocks going up and one ball, and it's going like this. People were fascinated when that game first came out. So here's what happened. Scientists took human neurons independent from the body and put them into a petri dish. So they're not even attached to a human. And they have a special chip where the little dendrites, little tentacles, if you will, from the neuron will fit into a port on the chip. So now you've got a chip and a neuron interface. And they were able to hook that up to a computer that was loaded with Pong. And the longer they played, the better they got. So here's the question now that the scientists have to ask. How does a neuron not attached to a human in a petri dish know how to play Pong? Are the instructions stored in the neuron? The answer is no. And this is going to go back to what we said earlier. The neuron is the antenna that tunes to the place in the field where Pong lives in our, some people call it an Akashic record, or they call it the Planck field, or 0-point field, or the divine matrix, or the matrix, whatever you want to call it. There's a field that underlies all existence, and that field is information. So in the experiment, the neuron was the antenna connected to Pong in our lives, the neurons in our brain and the neurons in our hearts, and in every organ of the body, they've now been found, connect us to that field. When we replace our natural biology with synthetics, and we no longer are using those neurons, and we're no longer using DNA, we're still human, and we can still function, but we've lost our divinity. We've lost our ability to love, forgive, to initiate our own healing, innovation, imagination, creativity. This is the essence of our humanness. This is why we're the prize, because when we lose those, we are vulnerable to power, control, and other people's ideas of what our world and our lives should look like. The transhuman movement is the movement to do just that, and these next 5 years are critical. Our story defines the way that we are in the world. So we live our lives based upon our story, the way we're conditioned to think about ourselves. Everybody has a story that begins before we're even born in our mother's womb. The epigenetic factors are determining our subconscious story. The way that our friends and our family and our peers and our school and our church teach us to deal with the world. That's all part of our story. And based upon our story defines every relationship we'll ever have. So every relationship, every friend that we'll ever have, every human that we invite into our bed is a reflection of the story that we have told ourselves about ourselves and believe. This is the key. What story do you believe? Many people tell themselves stories, but they don't even believe their own stories. Those are called affirmations. You can say the affirmations 1,000,000 times a day if you don't believe that you are worthy of a perfect mate, if you don't believe that you're worthy of the healing. I honor the left brain. Everyone has a left brain to some degree. Everyone learns differently. Not everyone learns the same. Not everyone wants to hear everything that I just shared with you. But if someone is looking for the reason to think differently, they're saying, Greg, give me a reason to think differently about myself. I'm sharing with you in the book a lot more detail, but I'm sharing the science that shows us that we are a soft technology. We're not a frail, flawed biological form of life subject to flaws. We have very, very few flaws. Our body performs with what it's given to work with. Our body is a reflection. Candace Pert, the Harvard MD, said this in Molecules of Motion. She actually said, your body is your subconscious mind, because what you believe about yourself is creating the chemicals in the body. So I, as a child, had to reconcile what I felt, what I would call my soul compass, because it wasn't supported in my community. People didn't talk like this. And it sent me on a journey to understand myself, and that led me on a journey to understand our past. Two very powerful stories, experience when I was 14. So now I've left home, I'm living with my band, and I go see my first rock concert. There was a group that was called Jefferson Airplane, and the lead singer was this stunningly beautiful woman named Grace Slick, is her name. She's still alive today. And I sat on the front row and yelled at Grace Slick and told her how much I loved her, and she completely blew me off. But I watched in that room, there were about 30,000 people, and I watched them moved by what a couple of people did on that stage. But here's the thing. Then the concert was over and we left. And everyone needed to have something to recreate that experience. At that time, there were 8-track tapes or albums. They needed something to recreate that. Weeks later, I had another experience, and I'm not saying I'm aligned with the message. There was an evangelist named Billy Graham, a powerful, powerful speaker. He spoke to 70,000 people in the Kansas City Athletics Stadium, outdoor stadium. And here's the difference. When those people left, they felt differently about themselves. They didn't need anything to recreate the feeling, because his words had helped them to sense and to feel and to see themselves differently than they did before they went in to hear that. What I recognized as a kid, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this, but I think there is a way. Our words, the words are so powerful. When you think about what we do with words, we breathe the breath from outside of us. We invite it into our bodies. We begin to flutter our diaphragm. We push the air back over the direction it just came down from. And as it's moving back, we begin to flutter our vocal cords in just the right way. Listen to this. To reflect the thoughts and the feelings that we're having as acoustic waveforms, so they can leave our bodies and fall on the skin and onto the eardrums of another living being to convey our deepest, most intimate experiences. Nobody can see our thought, but we're converting the thought into acoustic waveforms through the air that we're forcing back, and the ability to modulate our vocal cords in just the right way to create those acoustic patterns, and then they leave our bodies. My words have left my body. Now they're falling on you. They're touching your skin. They're touching your eardrums, and your nervous system is now interpreting my thoughts. And we are so good at it, we don't give it a second. Once we give our humanness, once we give our biology away, we'll never get it back. And we become something very different. This is what Ray Kurzweil is talking about, and it's what the others are talking about. But it comes down to something even deeper than that. And if you're going to do a soundbite, maybe this is going to be the soundbite, because not everybody's into the good and evil, not everybody's into the technology and all of that. It comes down to love. The question that we all ask ourselves, do we love ourselves enough to accept the gift of our humanness and the responsibility that comes with being a human, and our divinity, expressing our divinity fearlessly in this world? That's the question we're all asking ourselves. And without a verbal answer, the choices that we make, the politics that we choose, the medical systems that we choose, the food that we eat, the wars that we create, or the peace that we create, are the answer to that question. We're all answering it right now, but how can you answer it if you don't know the context? So I'm going to go back. Good and evil, a battle between good and evil. This is a very different battle. You don't win this battle. It's not the kind of battle that you win by fighting. We don't want to win. We want to triumph. And the way you triumph, and this is the beauty, You don't have to know any of this. The way we triumph is by living the best version of ourselves. We live our humanness. We live our divinity. We love fearlessly. We innovate. We create. We forgive without expectation. When we do that forgiveness, we do all of those things. And by doing that, that is the very opposite. The evil wants to defeat us by separating us from those expressions. When we live them, we have triumphed. And I think that's the beauty of where we are right now. It has to begin with knowing that you have a choice. First of all, people believe that there is no choice because they have been conditioned and indoctrinated to believe that they are powerless victims of a world around them that they have no control over, and that they are a flawed form of life that needs something outside of their body, right? So knowledge is power. You have to be willing to embrace the deep truth of your humanness and your divinity. It's very difficult to break through those patterns if you are not willing to accept the truth of your humanness and the power and responsibility that comes with being a human on this earth. And we're given very few reasons to do that in our lives, and our school children are given very few reasons to do that. And that's why they've lost respect in many cases for their bodies. They don't have a sense of a future because the indoctrination is telling them they live in a world where it's hopeless. That's what it's telling them. Now, with the exception of the drugs, we were more than poor. And my father finally left. He left when I was 10, fortunately. Tough for my mom, raising two boys. She didn't have a job. This was early 1960s. I lied about my age. I went to work in a copper mill so I could be a union worker. After school, I worked union hours, 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. There were 12-hour shifts. We lived in government subsidized housing for most of my teen years until I left, and then I was forced to go back. At the age of 14, I left. The court intervened and said, you have to go back until you're 18 or you become a ward of the state. So I went back. We lived in government subsidized housing. And it's one of those things, you can hear the words from a million different people. You have to find a reason to become more than the circumstances of your past. You have to find that reason for yourself. And that's why the information, it's more than just data. When I can show someone the potential within their bodies to look at it differently, when I can show someone what their divinity is really all about, and that it's so valuable that nations will create wars to divert and distract us, what is it within us that could possibly warrant that extreme of hurt and suffering? It's because we are so valuable and so precious. To recognize that that potential is there, and that we are a rare and precious and beautiful and ancient and sacred form of life. No one's telling our young people that at all. You know, we see this in religious traditions where the human body is often called the temple. And in biblical traditions and other traditions, from that perspective, if someone is biblically inclined, I think it's 1 Corinthians 13, I think, that says, know ye not that ye are the temple of God. What does that mean? Well, when we go to Egypt, we go to Greece, we go to many of these ancient civilizations, when they build temples, they build them in layers. And the innermost sanctum is where the most precious secrets and the wisdom are always kept. For example, the Ark of the Covenant in Solomon's temple. It wasn't like by the doorway when you walk in. You had to go through layers, and only certain people were allowed in there. Well, from that perspective, if the human body is a temple, those ancient traditions, that innermost sanctum is called the Holy of Holies, is the term that's given, the Holy of Holies. It's where the Ark was kept. In Solomon's temple, we as a temple, as a human body temple, have not one Holy of Holies. We have 50 trillion Holy of Holies, because the nucleus of every cell in our body holds the information that reminds us that we are not what we've been told. We're so much more than we've been led to believe. And we have a choice. And this is what sets us apart from all of the forms of life. Now, there are techniques that we teach. You can't change what's happened to us. I can't change the hurt from my past. And what I've experienced is nothing compared to what many of my brothers and sisters on this planet have experienced. The trauma creates the chemicals in the body. There are techniques to release that trauma. And once it's released chemically, then what remains is the emotional remedies. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go through the emotional remedies and within the context of chemical trauma in the body. So I would recommend exploring techniques to release the trauma. And what I have found most effective, we do this in our 4-day programs. I'm not here to talk about that, but I want people to know these are available. There are forms of breath work. The breath work is a lubricant. It's an emotional lubricant that frees those neuropeptides to move through the body. There are emotional freedom techniques, EFT, for some specific forms of trauma, tapping techniques that people have used. Therapy can work to a limited degree, and I want to back that statement up. 1991, scientists discovered 40,000 specialized cells in the human heart. Now, I say discovered, they'd always been there, but no one thought to look because they're essentially neurons. Why would you look for a neuron that you know is in the brain? Why would you even look into the heart? Well, they found a neural network in the heart. So what that means is when we have trauma, we experience it in two places. And the neural network in the heart thinks, feels, remembers, and emotes independently of the cranial brain. So that means the trauma that we experience throughout our lives, including me, in coming from an abusive alcoholic family, that trauma is instilled, if it's unresolved, in both places. So I can go to a therapist and talk about my trauma from the polarity of my left and right brain. That's the ego. And the brain, because it's a polarity organ, it does what it always does. The brain will always see your trauma in polarity: good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure, worthy, not worthy. That's what the brain does. The beauty of being able to access trauma from the heart is not in polarity. And there are techniques called, for example, heart-brain coherence. Some of your guests have talked. I know my brother, Dr. Joe, he and I used to teach together. I was using it in my programs. He began using it in his programs. It was very successful. He's taken it light years beyond where we were working together in the past, because it works. And when you can begin to experience the trauma without the judgment, the polarity of the rightness or the wrongness or the goodness, how could they do that to me? Or I was betrayed, or how could she have done that? Or how could he? That's what keeps us locked in the trauma. The breath work, the beauty of the coherence work is that you don't have to say any words. You don't have to describe it to someone. You don't have to relive it because every time you relive that trauma, what you're doing is you're strengthening the neural network that's hanging on to that trauma. And really what you want to do is to free the neuropeptides that were created from that. So to be able to physically release that trauma is where I personally, in my journey, what I'm describing to you is my journey. And from that, knowing that we are chemically free of the trauma, there's an emotional component that says, you feel different. What I invite people to do in our 4-day programs is take a picture of their own eyes before we go through this process. And the process involves what we're doing now. It's information to give them reasons to think differently. It's techniques, and it's breathing and other things that go with that. And then take pictures afterwards. Cherokee was also a Holocaust. They were victims of the Trail of Tears experience that was still epigenetically, those things are passed down. And I can't change what happened, but I have worked, and I will. It's not an event. The healing is never an event. It's a process. It's a journey. We're already healed, or we wouldn't be here. And we are seeking deeper levels of healing. And I think that's important for people to realize. Our bodies are wired to heal. We are constantly healing. Healing is our nature. Every organ in the human body is now documented with the ability to stop the damage that's been incurred, to reverse that damage, and actually to heal and regrow telomeres, for example, on the DNA. Even the organs that we were told could not, pancreatic tissue, heart tissue, brain tissue, we were told couldn't. And And all of them have been documented with the ability to do this, Lewis. And here's the catch. There is a catch. They have to be given the environment to initiate that healing, to create that healing. And the environment is the emotional environment that has the greatest impact. We have to feel that we are worthy of that healing. Divinity is the reason for that worth. And we understand our divine nature. And it has, again, nothing to do with religion. People will link religion to it if they want to. That's fine. That's fine. But go back to the definition. The ability to transcend perceived limitations. That is a powerful, powerful facet. The knowledge is a code. Once you see a potential about your body, you can't unsee it. Now you have a choice. You can deny it. We have free will. We can deny divinity. Everyone has divinity, but not everyone will express their divinity. We have the ability to deny our own divinity, and many people will. They will say they're not worthy, that they don't have the power. We can have our divinity taken from us by those who have power over us, conditioned out of us, and that happens through an abusive family relationship. Technology can steal our divinity, because think about this. Divinity doesn't live in the body. We have to be able to communicate with the part of us that doesn't live in here. Science is struggling with this. How did the neuron know how to play Pong? There's a part of that game that's not in the neuron. There's a part of us that's not in the body. That's what it's telling us. So we have to be able, this is why now, more than ever, I mean, it's always important to be healthy. These next 5 years, we've got to be healthier than we've ever been in our lives, because we need every iota, every ounce of our biology, our humanness, so that we can fully express our divinity, so that we can love. We're going to love this world. And there is a component about who you surround yourself with. You want to transcend, without judging, but if you want to transcend a violent or hurtful past, then you seek community, forensic. Community can be one person. Doesn't have to be an ashram, you know. For some people it is. But you seek those that will support your vision, consciously or unconsciously. And we do that in life. This is what relationships are all about. Our prime directive is to be whole. We will seek our wholeness by being in relationships with those who have the parts of us that we've lost, given away, or had taken from us by those who have power over us. So now we're talking about energetic imprints. So when we find a partner, and we know this, we'll actually say the words. We'll say, man, I feel really good when I'm with you, or I feel whole, or you're my better half, or I feel complete. Those are all, and we're being very honest, because when we're with them, think of it like a puzzle. My father, for example, attempted through criticism to denigrate and demean my capabilities. And he did to some degree, but I didn't believe a lot of it. But I, as a musician, I would seek out a community, and when I was with other people that believed in themselves, and they had the guts to walk up on that stage and own that stage and pull out that guitar and blast those vocals, where I felt very self-conscious, because I had been taught that I wasn't worthy of that. And by being around other people, you say it doesn't have to be an intimate sexual relationship. It can be. And that's where we usually learn the fastest, because that intimacy goes right to the core. Vulnerability, it's the fast track to a deep healing, or it's a fast track to a deep wound. And I have multiple divorces to attest to that, because we all learn and grow differently, in life. So we're seeking that wholeness. And I think if someone wants that healing, to remain in a community with others who have poor self-esteem, poor vision of themselves, who hate their bodies, wake up in the morning, and actually some people say to themselves, they hate their bodies. And all they want to do is get out of here. They want to get off this planet. Those are not conducive to the healing. And there's actually an energetic component. There is a consciousness, an energetic component. The Institute of Heart Math, I've worked with since the year of their inception, 1994, 95. One of the things they found was that around every physical heart, there's an energetic blueprint. There's a field that extends between 3 and 5 feet.
Wow.
And I asked them once, I said, man, if the heart's so powerful, why does it stop at 5 feet? And they said, oh, well, that's the limitation of the equipment. They said, on the quantum level, in all probability, our hearts are influencing the world around us on an infinite level, on the quantum level. So when you're healing, to surround yourself with people who have a healthier, I mean, I don't think anyone's 100%, but to have a healthier sense of self and a deep respect and a reverence for life and for their bodies, that field is going to influence your body. And it's one of those things, I can talk about it, but you have to experience it. And here's what it'll feel like. You'll just start feeling different. Something in you is going to say, you know what? It's not for me. That shift is the awakening of that divinity and a deep respect and appreciation for the human body. Because we all know we're here. If you're here now, we're here for a really special time to advocate for our divinity in the presence of a field or evil, if you want to think of it that way, that wants to steal it from us. We're here to claim it. And that little shift, or maybe somebody will offer you a big greasy burger and big greasy fries with a heap of ketchup that you would have done anything for a week earlier. And you look at that and your body feels different. And you have to listen to that, because that's your body saying, I'm worth more. I'm worth more than what this food is going to do to my body. Because the meal is not about filling the empty space. The meal is about nourishing the gift of my biology, the gift of my temple.